August 16, 1869. A Brazilian cavalry officer rides through a battlefield in Paraguay. He's expecting to see dead soldiers. Instead, he finds the bodies of children, some as young as 6 years old. Many are wearing fake beards made from sheep's wool. This is the Battle of Acosta Ñu, the day 3,500 children fought 20,000 professional soldiers. And this is the story your history teacher never told you, because some truths are too horrifying to teach. To understand how children ended up on a battlefield, we need to go back 5 years, to 1864, when Paraguay made the worst strategic decision in military history. Meet Francisco Solano López, president of Paraguay, ambitious, brilliant, and catastrophically overconfident. Here's what most people don't know. In 1864, Paraguay was actually one of South America's most advanced nations. They had railways when their neighbors had dirt roads, telegraph lines when others used messengers on horses, an army of 70,000 trained soldiers. But Paraguay had one fatal weakness. It was landlocked, completely surrounded by 3 massive neighbors: Brazil, Argentina, and Uruguay. When Uruguay's politics exploded into civil war in 1864, López made his move. He thought he could expand Paraguayan influence, maybe grab some territory, secure access to the sea. Instead, he unified his 3 giant neighbors against him: Brazil, Argentina, Uruguay, the Triple Alliance. Combined population, 11 million. Combined armies, hundreds of thousands of soldiers. Paraguay's population, 450,000 people total, including women, children, and the elderly. Look at those numbers again. 11 million versus 450,000. How would you survive those odds? December 1864, Paraguay invades Brazil. The War of the Triple Alliance begins. At first, López's gamble seems brilliant. Paraguay's well-trained army wins shocking victories. They capture Brazilian territory. They push into Argentina. For a moment, the impossible looks possible. And then, reality arrives. The Triple Alliance isn't just bigger, they're industrialized. Brazil alone sends ironclad warships up Paraguay's rivers, ships that Paraguayan artillery can't even dent. The tide turns. Paraguay starts losing, badly. Allied forces invade Paraguay itself. They're not just fighting soldiers anymore, they're destroying everything. Villages burned, crops destroyed, livestock slaughtered. This isn't war, this is systematic annihilation. By 1868, Paraguay's army is shattered. Of those original 70,000 soldiers, most are dead. The survivors are starving, diseased, exhausted. But López refuses to surrender. He conscripts every man he can find: 15-year-olds, 60-year-olds, anyone who can hold a weapon. And then he runs out of men. By 1869, Paraguay's adult male population has almost completely been wiped out. Entire towns have no men at all, just widows, orphans, and terrified children. Any sane leader would surrender, but López isn't sane anymore. He's desperate, paranoid, convinced that surrender means the end of Paraguay itself. So, in July 1869, he issues the most horrifying military order in South American history. He drafts the children. August 16, 1869. Across what's left of Paraguay, boys are pulled from their homes. Some volunteer, believing they're defending their families. Most don't have a choice. Ages 6 to 15, that's the recruitment pool. 6 years old. Let me say that again. Children as young as 6 years old are handed rifles and told they're soldiers now. But there's a problem. These children don't look like soldiers. They look like what they are: terrified kids playing with weapons they can barely lift. The Paraguayan officers know this. They know the Brazilian cavalry will see these children and might hesitate, might show mercy. So they come up with the most tragic disguise in military history. Fake beards, made from sheep's wool, glued to the faces of children to make them look like adult soldiers. Imagine that moment, a 10-year-old boy standing in line while someone glues wool to his face so the enemy won't realize he's a child. By August 16, 1869, López has assembled his final reserve, 3,500 soldiers. Most are boys between 8 and 15, a few elderly men, some women volunteers who refuse to stay behind. Their weapons? Antique muskets, homemade lances, machetes. Some carry sticks painted to look like rifles because there aren't enough real ones. Their mission? Hold the line at a place called Acosta Ñu. Delay the Brazilian army long enough for López and the remnants of the Paraguayan government to escape. They're not expected to win, they're expected to die. And marching towards them, 20,000 elite Brazilian troops, fresh, well-armed, experienced, led by the Conde Du, grandson-in-law of the Emperor of Brazil. 3,500 children with fake beards and broken weapons versus 20,000 professional soldiers. There's only one way this can end, right? August 16, 1869. Dawn breaks over Acosta Ñu. Brazilian scouts report enemy forces ahead. The commanders expect maybe a few hundred desperate stragglers, easy pickings. The Conde Du orders his cavalry forward, 20,000 men, including some of the finest cavalry in South America, advance towards the Paraguayan position. On the other side, children as young as 6 huddle in makeshift trenches. Their fake beards itch, their hands shake, some are crying. 10 a.m. The Brazilians spot the Paraguayan lines, and then something impossible happens. The children open fire, and they fight back. For 5 hours, those 3,500 children hold the line against 20,000 soldiers. They're not just fighting, they're fighting like veterans. The cavalry charges. The children form squares just like they'd been taught and pour musket fire into the approaching horses. Cavalry falls back, regroups, charges again. When the Brazilians break through, it turns into hand-to-hand combat. 10-year-olds with machetes fighting grown men, 12-year-olds using lances, 8-year-olds throwing rocks when their ammunition runs out. And then, around noon, a Brazilian officer gets close enough to see his enemy clearly. The beards are fake, made of wool, and behind them are the faces of children. The officer rides back to headquarters, reports what he's seen. The Conde Du doesn't believe him at first, but as more Brazilian soldiers engage, the reports keep coming. They're fighting children. The entire Paraguayan army is children. The Brazilians are horrified. Some soldiers refuse to fire, others break down in tears, but the battle doesn't stop. By 3 p.m., the Paraguayan position is surrounded. Ammunition is gone. The children are fighting with sticks, rocks, their bare hands. The Brazilian cavalry makes one final charge. By 4 p.m., the Battle of Acosta Ñu is over. The Brazilian soldiers walk across the battlefield, and what they find breaks them. Bodies everywhere, small bodies, children in oversized uniforms, fake beards made of sheep's wool still glued to their faces. Final count, between 2,000 and 3,500 Paraguayan casualties, almost all of them children, some as young as 6 years old. The survivors, maybe 500 wounded children, are captured. Many die from their wounds in the days that follow. The Brazilian soldiers are traumatized. Many will suffer nightmares for the rest of their lives. Some desert. Others write letters home describing what they've seen, begging their families to pray for them. The Conde Du writes in his official report, "We have fought children. God forgive us." Meanwhile, Francisco Solano López, the man who sent children to die, successfully escapes. The children bought him the time he needed. He'll survive another 8 months before being killed by Brazilian troops in March 1970. The War of the Triple Alliance ends in 1970. Paraguay is destroyed. Before the war, 450,000 people. After the war, 221,000 survivors. Of those, only 28,000 are adult men. Paraguay lost more than 60% of its entire population, and almost 90% of its adult male population was dead. It would take Paraguay more than 50 years to recover. Some historians argue they never fully did.
Today, August 16th, is a national holiday in Paraguay, Dia del Niño, Children's Day. But it's not a happy celebration. It's a memorial, a day to remember the children who died at Acosta Ñu. There's a monument at the battle site now. It shows a child soldier holding a rifle too big for his small hands. We don't know most of their names. They were too young to have official military records, just children who became statistics. Historians still argue about Acosta Ñu. Some say López was a madman who sacrificed children for his own ego. Others say he was defending Paraguay's sovereignty against foreign invasion. But here's what's not debatable. 3,500 children fought 20,000 soldiers, and most of those children never came home. Wars create monsters, not just the obvious kind, the dictators and the generals, but the quieter kind, the kind that makes sending children to battle seem like the only option. And before you think this is ancient history, remember, right now, today, there are estimated to be 250,000 child soldiers fighting in conflicts around the world. The Battle of Acosta Ñu happened 155 years ago, but we're still sending children to war. So when August 16th comes around, remember those children with fake beards made of sheep's wool. Remember that they fought impossible odds. Remember that they died for a war they didn't start and couldn't understand. And ask yourself, have we learned anything at all? The Children's Army fought, the Children's Army died, and the world forgot. But we remember them now.